Okay, so I'm going to demonstrate to you how to do Project 7, our paragraph hierarchy project. Let's take a quick look at the brief first to talk about what's going to happen. All right, so you have a brief article. I've given you the text as a text document. You're going to lay it out several times following different constraints. Your primary concerns are going to be clearly communicating the hierarchy of the article and composing pleasing, legible paragraphs. So you must use the provided text file. Be sure to remove the bracketed labels, just like last time. You are going to use the minion family, which comes installed with or included with Adobe Creative Suite. Just the regular widths, no condensed widths. All text paragraphs must be flush left, ragged right. And you're going to follow the general layout rules of a two-column text layout with the headline at the top, aligning to your grid. And I've given you a little schematic as figure 1. Basically, headline and subhead go at the top. Our text left and right columns go in the center of the page. Publication info can go in the top right. It can go in the bottom right. Okay, so this is just a general layout scheme that you want to follow. You're going to make the decisions yourself, but following that general layout. Now there are some constraints to the typefaces that you can use. So on page 1, you can use Minion Pro Regular only, but you can use it at any size. Page 2, you can use Minion Pro any style, so that includes regular, italic, bold, bold italic, etc. But you can only use one size for everything on the page, and that I recommend 8 or 9 points. And then page 3, you can use Minion Pro any size, any style, any size. So basically you have some artificial constraints on page 1 and on page 2. Page 3, the handcuffs come off. You can use any style, any size to help you communicate hierarchy. And lastly, creating paragraph style sheets will make this project easier. I'm going to demonstrate how to create and use paragraph style sheets. You don't have to do that, but it will make your life easier. I recommend that you do. All right. So I'm going to, and the rest are directions. We have master page directions, page 1, 2, 3 directions, and mounting directions. What else is in the brief? A list of the grading, the deadline, what the deliverables are, a schematic of the layout, a schematic of how I want it mounted for live classes. Page 3 are some examples of just possible page layouts. So you notice our example of page 1, we use many sizes, but only Minion Regular. Page 2, we use one size, but different weights and styles. And page 3, we use different sizes and different weights and styles. Page 4 is just a reproduction of some common proofreading marks. This is just a good reference for you guys to have. So I'm going to put this aside, and I'm going to dive into the project. So we create a new document in InDesign. You want to turn off facing pages. For those of us in the United States or elsewhere in North America, you want to use US letter. For those of you elsewhere, you want to use A4 paper. Basically, whatever your printer uses, that's what you want to use. I'm going to demonstrate with US letter. Our margins, we want 5 picas top, left, and right, and then 6.5 picas at the bottom. So you remember, if this chain is clicked, this chain icon is clicked, that makes all settings the same. So that's why when I entered 5, it entered 5 in all 5 places. The problem here is if I enter 6.5 picas in the bottom, that is selected, then I get 6p6 all around. That's not what I want. Alright, so if you have that selected, I want 5 picas top, left and right, that's good. I unclick, and the bottom should be 6 picas, 6 points, 6p6. Hit return, your page should look like that. If all 4 margins are even, you know you've made a mistake, you want to go back and redo that step. You want top, left, and right margins to be even, and the bottom margin to be a little bit larger. We generally do this because if things are perfectly vertically centered, they tend to look low to our eyes. Yet another example of an optical correction. So our first step is to go to the master page. You remember master pages from the last project? You double-click master pages, and we want to do 2 things here. We're going to set up a page grid. So you go to Layout, Create Guides. And we want 4 columns, 2, 3, 4. If you turn on preview, you will see it being built. You want to make sure you fit the guides to the margins, not to the page, to the margins. And we want 8 rows. Okay? That is our 4x8 grid, our page grid. We hit OK. That's the first thing we need on our master page. The second thing we need is a footer. So we draw a text box down at the bottom. If we switch to the arrow, we can look at what our dimension is. I would make this at 40, excuse me, wrong box. I want to make it 41 picas wide, that's correct. I want my Y position to be 61 picas down. You may notice that just moved down. So that is a good distance down beneath my bottom margin. What is in my footer? My name, a tab, project 7, tab, and the automatic page number. You remember automatic page number you get at type, insert special characters, markers, current page number, and it will show up as an A because we are in master page A. All right, you want to select all of this. You want to make this myriad bold. What did I tell you guys? 7 points. So this is fairly small. The text in your header is fairly small. Now you want to go in here with the type tool. With the tab tool. So you go to type and tables. I'm sorry, in InDesign it's under the type menu. Tabs is this. This gives you a tabs menu up here. We've inserted tab stops. I would make 1 tab left align to our second column over, and I would make the last tab, right align to the right edge. Okay? So we have our name aligning to the left column, project 7 aligning to the third column over, our automatic page numbering right aligning to the right-hand side. And you remember that what is in the master page appears on every subsequent page. So we go to page 1, and this is important. Don't start working on the master page. Now go to page 1, and you'll notice my grid is there, my footer is there. The footer now says page 1 because we've set up automatic page numbering in our master page. Do not start designing in the master page. You will give yourself a massive headache. How can you tell? You can tell in the Pages palette by what page number is highlighted. And if you have set up master pages correctly, master page numbering, you will see the page number here. If you're in the master page, that marker appears as an A. Remember, you don't type a capital A. You do the special automatic page numbering marker that I showed you guys. All right, so make sure you're on page 1. At this point, I would save the file. I've said it before, I'll say it again, save early, save often. Type 1, project 7, last name, first initial. Now, you're on page 1. You want to set up a text frame, and you want to import the text document into that frame. So you, with your text frame selected, go to File, Place. This is just like placing an image in InDesign, which you haven't done yet in my class at least. You can place images, you can place text. So you go to this docx, which is a Microsoft Word format. It is a brief article from the AIGA. What is graphic design? From the AIGA Career Guide. All right, I would select it all, everything, make it minion. Minion regular. Now, this first page, you have to use minion regular. You can choose sizes. Second page, minion all one size, but you can choose different styles. Now, let's deal with our headline first. I'm going to move the text box up here. I'm also going to turn on invisible characters. So if you go to Type, Show Hidden Characters. It's also Option-Command-I, toggles it on and off. This is super useful. I'm going to zoom way in. You can see a couple things show up when I turn on hidden characters. These things that are in blue are hidden characters. We've made the invisible visible. So these little blue dots indicate a word space. You notice there's one between each word. And the pilcrow, the blue pilcrow, which looks like a sort of stylized backwards P, that means a paragraph break. That means a hard return. This is very useful to have open. It's very useful to see all this information when you're designing. Now, I want to have just the headline and subhead in this top text frame. I'm going to hit Enter, and that jumps the text to the next text frame. And you can see now I have a red plus sign at the end of the text frame. If I click that, I get this icon, which shows me loaded up with the rest of the text. Okay, so here is the rest of the text. And I've created a text frame that is 2 columns wide according to my grid. I'm going to do it again to create this second right-hand column, and then what I like to do, because you usually have some overflow at the beginning, is create another one off the page. This is helpful just so that you can get a sense of everything you still have to deal with. All right? So I just keep making this bigger until I don't see that red plus sign anymore. All right? And now is when you can start designing. So I want to go in, I want to design my headline. I think my headline should be big. I'm going to make it like 80 points. Well, if I look at that in the page, that's obviously way too big because I can only fit a couple words. Let's try 42 points. That's better. What if I remove my bracketed label? Remember to always do this. What is graphic design at 42 points? That's pretty good. I like the way that looks for my headline. Now I'm going to do the same thing for my subhead. Now, there are many ways to communicate the hierarchy. We can do it with size, we can do it with position, we can do it with style. But we can't use style on page 1. Oh, so we only have size and position. We have to use minion regular. So I'm going to work with size. I'm going to say 24 points because I want this to appear important. It's my secondary heading, but I want it to appear less important than my headline, obviously. So let me see. My headline is about 42 points. Or it's exactly 42 points. My subhead is 24 points. It's a little bit more than half the size. And yeah, it feels good to me. I'm going to go with this size. Now, you may remember when we went to Kerning Boot Camp and we were playing around with alignment, and optical alignment. And you may say, well, I want to optically align this. InDesign has this great feature. You go to Window, type in Tables, Story. You get this story palette, which is bizarre that it's a palette that it's a whole palette that only does one thing. But the one thing it does is really cool, which is optical margin alignment. And if you click that, you'll notice here the left arm of our capital W has gone out into the margin a little bit. The software has optically aligned this by cheating. Because as we remember, it is better to look right than to be mathematically right. Optically right versus mathematically right. All right. So that is often this is a very cool little feature. This often takes care of your optical alignment in a satisfactory way. Now, you have control over how much optical alignment. 6 points versus 60. It defaults to 12 points, and I find most of the time that's actually pretty good. This is one of those instances where the default actually works pretty well most of the time. The thing I am going to adjust in my secondary head is the leading. It defaults to 28.8 on 24. I want to give this a little bit more breathing room. I'm going to go to 34. Now, you want to make all your own decisions here. You don't have to do the exact sizes I'm showing you. I'm just walking you through the design process. This is all up to you. Now, let's go to our second text frame where we have the actual text. Now I need to fit everything on this one page. Everything has to fit. So let's take a look at our sizing. It's now 12 points on 14.4, and that's large for text. Text, you usually want 8 or 9 points is smaller. 11 points is usually kind of your top for a lot of text, your top size for a lot of text. I say this is a very, very general rule of thumb because it depends on your typeface. It depends on the appearance of your typeface. It depends on how it's going to be used. If it's going to be used on, say, a large print book for the visually impaired, obviously you don't want to do a bunch of 8-point text there. You want to make the text as large as you can. If it's going to be several paragraphs of text on introductory sign and a museum exhibit, for example, you obviously don't want to make that 9 points. You want people to be able to read it from a few feet away. But if you're talking about page design for something printed or something on screen for someone with average vision, between 9 and 11 points is pretty good for text. I'm going to go down to 9 points, and I can see it all fits. So 9 points, I'm going to say 9 on 10 points leading to start with. We'll take it from there and see. I'm going to go in here. Remember, look at it at 100% size whenever possible. I'm going to look at it here. I'm going to go through. I have a couple of issues. I need to call out my subheads. I can't make them bold. So I'm going to go for size. Let's say 12-point subheads. And I'm going to do that again here. 12-point subheads. All right, so you can style everything you want to generally figure out what your size and placement are going to be before you worry about the breaks and rags and all of that good stuff. You want to save that for last because you don't want to go in and, you know, tweak all your line breaks and then be like, oh, you know, this should actually be a point size bigger, because that will change everything. You want to get the size worked out well first. Now I'm going to go in here, my publication info, I want to set this in a separate box. So I'm going to do enter, that bumps it to the next box, to my next text frame. And I'm going to style this a little bit. I'm going to go in here and select all this, and I'm going to make this smaller. This is small for text, but remember, this is not our text. This is our text. This is an extra little note. This is our publication info. So this can be small. It's like the legal text at the bottom of a credit card application or something. I'm going to put it down in this corner. You have a couple options of where to put this, but I'm going to put it down here. So this is looking pretty good for a start. If I were a savvy student, I would print this out and look at it printed at actual size. Remember, judge it at work at actual size as often as possible. I'm always zooming in and zooming out, but and looking at the whole page. But remember, we look at the whole page. On my monitor, it's actually at 61%. You want to, your default, you want to keep going back to 100%. You want to look at it at 100% as much as possible. And then look at it printed, because that doesn't lie. Now, we have a couple of issues in here. Let's turn our hidden characters back on and zoom way in. Issue 1. This is a big cultural hangover. Most people think that you need 2 spaces between sentences when you're writing. This goes back to the days of typewriters where you didn't have variable sizes of spaces, so you had to hit the space bar twice to indicate that it was the space between words and not the space between sentences, not the space between words. We are not working with monospaced type. We are working with type that has different spaces. You don't need to do this in modern word processors. You don't need to do this in modern design software. We haven't had to do this for since the 80s. Yet people still do it. Writers still do it all the time. So part of our job as a designer is, and you can see if we turn it off, we have this big gappy look between sentences. There's too much of a space there because there are 2 spaces. So part of our job as designers is to deal with this. You're going to have to deal with it. Savvy writers have started to train themselves not to do 2 spaces, but it's probably going to take us 20 more years to get over this thing as a culture. So it's up to us in the meantime as designers to deal with it. Now, you can go in and delete with your invisibles on and find every instance, and it's very painstaking and you're very likely to miss one. So that's the hard way to do it. I'm going to show you the easy way. And that is with a find and replace. So under your edit menu, you have find change. If you enter a space bar in find what, enter the space bar twice in find what, and go in here, make sure there's nothing in there, change it to a single space. Do find, oh, it found one. I would do change find, change find, change find, let the computer do the hard work of searching. And you just check its work. You just go through and be like, yep, yep, change it, yep, yep, I agree, yes, change it, okay, yes, good. Now, you may notice that there is a change all button. I recommend you not use that. First of all, it's just a very good idea to check on your own. Look out for these things on your own. Confirm what the computer is doing. Another reason is lots of writers like to play designer in Microsoft Word, and they do it by, they're like, I think this headline should be centered, and they just do like 25 spaces in front of something. So if you just tell it to change all, that will remove half the spaces in front, and you'll still have 10 spaces in front of the line that they meant to center. So people do this with tabs. People format, tables with spaces. It's just crazy the things people do when they're trying to design in Microsoft Word. That's why I highly recommend you check as you go. Do it step by step and check as you go. Now, I also recommend that you do it again. do it a second time. It will keep the same settings. You hit find. Oh, look, it found one. So in this case, it wasn't that it missed it the first time around. It was that the writer made a typo and did 3 spaces there. So I would tell it to change that, and great. Now we only have single space between all of our words. Now there's another thing, there's another big problem in this text. And you can see it here. We have a double dash. This is what writers do to indicate a hyphen. Excuse me, I said that backwards. A dash and a hyphen are really the same thing. So they do a double dash, a double hyphen to indicate what should be an M dash. We have 3 different types of dashes at our disposal. I'm going to zoom way in and show you. So the one that's just on the keyboard unmodified is that. That's a hyphen, aka a dash. If you do the shift of that on your keyboard, you get the underscore. That's something different. If you do option and dash, you get an N dash, EN. And you get an EM dash by holding down shift, option, and dash. All right, so you notice the hyphen or dash is smallest. The N dash is medium. M is the widest. This is easy to remember because the difference between an N dash and an M dash, because an M is wider than an N is narrower than an M. All right, so writers generally don't have access to this the way that we do. So we can go in there, select this. We know that the writer meant an M dash. We set an M dash without any spaces before or after. Now you can also do find and replace for double dashes. In fact, I recommend doing that. So you go in here, dash dash, and change it to an M dash. Shift, option, dash. Let's find. It cannot find a match because I already did it. All right. Now, you don't want to change every dash you see into an M dash. Not at all. Here we have so-called. That's a hyphenated word, a compound word. You don't want to change that to an M dash. Not at all. An M dash does a very specific thing. It indicates a break in a clause of the sentence. They usually work in pairs. It works very similarly to a colon or semicolon. All right, so these are all the nuts and bolts that we had to go through and look for. Oh, I'm forgetting the most important one. How can I forget? Spell check. Let's check the spelling. Now, it will do things like tell you uncapitalized sentences. Sometimes you want that. I want to leave that there. It often has words that are not in the dictionary, like AIGA. It's saying that's not a word. Well, you can skip that. It says letter forms. Now, designers often use, to a designer, letter forms is a compound word. To this dictionary, it isn't. So the point here is you need to make judgment calls. It also doesn't recognize proper names, like people's last names. Okay? All right, so there were no other spelling errors. But always, always, always check spelling. It's a great way to complete your proofreading obligations. Now, let's get into the nitty-gritty. I'm going to save this. Save early, save often. I'm going to save this, and let's get into the nitty-gritty of line breaks. Awesome. All right, now, we have our invisible characters on. We have our guides visible. I want to go through and adjust the line breaks. And the easiest way to do this is simply use something that we call a soft return. Now you notice a hard return, if you just hit the return key, you get this, which means that means the end of a paragraph. You don't really want that. To change a break, you want a soft return, which is shift return on your keyboard. And you get this sort of sideways, backwards L character. That is telling the software, I want to break the word here. I want to break the line here. All right, I'm doing this because this is a pet peeve of mine. It doesn't seem to bother other designers as much as it bothers me, but single letter words at the end of a line, I try to avoid them whenever possible. So I want to bring a process down here. Now, you'll notice it changed the break here, and that is because of Adobe software trying to be helpful. So if we go to our paragraph formatting controls and we go all the way over here, they bury this thing like crazy. It is doing the Adobe Paragraph Composer. So the Adobe Paragraph Composer will give you a fairly good it will give you a fairly good rag. It's not perfect. It's never up to my standards, but it will do a fairly good job of breaking type if you don't add any additional soft returns. The minute you add even one soft return, it all goes haywire. So this is why I wish it wasn't a default. I wish it would default to the single line composer. That's what I want, where it's just looking at line by line. All right? So now I have switched that. You'll notice the breaks are different now. Demonstrate a process. I think this looks way too gappy. I'm going to go add a soft return there. That's a good start. It's okay. Here, I don't like this big inset here. I want to make this smoother. I'm going to start here. You may notice often you need to start tweaking a couple lines above your problem when you're adjusting breaks. This one, we have this big cliff here. We also have a widow. The word typography is a widow. We don't want that. Now you can do a couple things. You can go in, you can tweak the overall tracking. If you do -5, -5 is the most I would ever bring in tracking on text. You can see it's already pretty tight, and it didn't make a difference. I would never do plus or minus more than 5 with text. So that isn't going to work. I'm going to go in, deal with the breaks. Oh, well, I killed 2 birds with 1 stone. I didn't like A by itself up here, so I knocked that down to the next line. That knocked everything down. Now I have 2 words here. I no longer have a widow. The word typography is no longer sad and lonely on a line by itself. Good. I see 2 problems here. I wish compelling wasn't breaking, and I also don't like this big inset here. So let's take a look. I'm going to break want. Maybe I will insert a break into information. No, I don't like that so much. All right, so this is an example of where I have tried to improve the rag, and I think, in fact, I made it worse. So I'm going to go back and undo what I did. Yeah, it was nicer at the beginning. I'm going to leave it be. Oh, maybe I'll break that. Maybe that is a little bit nicer. No, because now I have a second word breaking. It was the best it can be at the first. So this is a balance. Remember, it's near impossible to get a perfect rag on any paragraph, but you want the best one possible. This one, in the case of image-based design, well, that's pretty good. I'm going to leave that one be. Now, we have here an orphan. Again, more of our macabre typographic slang. So a widow is a single word on a line by itself. An orphan is a single line separated from the rest of its paragraph. So we have the first line of this paragraph here, the rest of the paragraph here. It's an orphan. Where's its parents? That's so sad. So the fix to this one, we can do it two ways. We can go in with and do an enter, and that will knock it to the next paragraph. That's a nice way to work because we know for sure it's going to work. The other way is you can just move the bottom of the text box up. That works too. Okay? So your first page is all Myriad Pro regular. I'm sorry, Minion Pro regular. You can make it any size, but you cannot use different styles. You cannot use bold. You cannot use italic. You cannot use bold italic. You can only work with size and placement. Page 2. Let's create page 2. And you could go through that whole entire process again of importing, spell checking, finding double spaces, switching the hyphens, if you really want to do extra work. But who wants to do extra work? The easy way is to duplicate this page and make page 2. I've just duplicated, and I'll do that again to show you. If you go into your page palette, you drag the icon for page 1 down onto this create new page icon. It just creates a duplicate. Here's our page 2, here's our page 1, exact duplicate. Now, aside from our footer, a requirement for page 2 is that everything has to be one type size. It's Minion Pro. I'm going to do 9 points. All right? 9 points. Everything has to be 9-point type. That includes our headline, that includes our subhead, our secondary head, that includes our subheads, that includes our legal text. Everything on the page needs to be the same size. The only exception is your footer. Okay? That is the only thing that is a different size. So you have another challenge to communicate hierarchy. If everything is the same size, how do you communicate hierarchy? Well, you have style and you have placement. So my page headline is only 9 points. What? That's tough. All right, well, I'm going to make it bold then. Because, you know, that's just crazy otherwise. And my secondary head is the same size as my head. Well, maybe I'll make it italic. So we have bold and we have italic, and I'm going to use spacing, which here I can adjust with the leading. I'm going to give this even more leading to help visually separate it. Okay. My text is all 9 points, but now my subheads in here look weird because they're the same size and style as my text. So I'm going to take advantage of style, and I'm going to make these bold as well, just to help identify. All right, so you have control over style, but you can only use one size. And page 3, you're going to be so happy when you get to it because you can control style and size. Maybe my publication information, because it's so much bigger. I might do italic to help communicate. my hierarchy, and I might make it go wider and bring it all the way down to my bottom margin. All right, I'm hoping that that will communicate it. Now, if I look at the page as a whole, I see, well, this really looks like it could be part of this text now, since I don't have the size to differentiate it. But I have all this space up at the top. Maybe I'll actually move this up here. Let's see how that works. I don't like that as much. I'm just going to undo and go back and make sure it's really down at the bottom. All right, so page 2, of course, if you have changed your text size, then you want to go in and adjust the rags again. You want your rags to be beautiful. That will probably take printing out, marking up your printouts with where the rags look wonky. Go in and fix them again. Page 3, you want to do the same exact thing. Copy page 2, and on page 3, you have both size and style. The only thing you can't use the condensed widths. You have to use the regular widths of memory. All right, and that is, and all of this, it's relatively simple to set up, but then there's a lot of finessing. There's a lot of looking for spacing and rag issues. All right, so you're going to spend as much time cleaning up the rags as you do designing the page. All right, now that fulfills your basics of this assignment. Now I do want to show you paragraph style sheets. I'm going to do that in a separate video. You don't have to use paragraph style sheets, but I want you to be aware of them, and it's a good idea to use them. It will actually make your life easier. So I'm going to do that in the next video. That's it for this video.